Hello, Pong Stars, and welcome to the Rathole. I'm your host, Commissioner Zach Eichten. Let's get right on into it. We had 4 matchups last week in round 1 of the 2020 Fantasy Football Playoffs. Of course, I was excited by the possibility of continuing on, but let's hop over to our punishment bracket first, where a lot more of the action played out that will develop into next week's matches as well. First up in the game between Worse Than Trash and Pelicans on a Bench. Again, that is Pelicans on a bench. Worse Than Trash was able to sneak out the victory in a very, very not narrow matchup at all. Led by Justin Herbert, 15.72 points for him. Both of these running backs getting over 10 points with J.K. Dobbins and Clyde Edwards-Helaire for this squad. Stephon Diggs having a fantastic matchup up against Pittsburgh. And as well as Justin Jefferson, he caught 4 of his 8 targets. He did fine, 7.9, but he's still on pace to definitely be the Rookie of the Year, as well as some excellent players from Detroit with TJ Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift, each getting 13 or more points. Really, this was a really solid starting lineup for Worse Than Trash in round 1 here. Russell Gage was on the bench for 16.26 points, but really other than that, it was a fantastic lineup decisions all around. Tony playing extremely well, getting that 115.92 points. The other team in this matchup was, of course, Pelicans on a bench. Again, that is Pelicans on a bench with, quite frankly, the worst performance I've ever seen in the playoffs from any team in league history. 38.66 points, only 0.56 points more than our worst ever score of all time. Pretty abysmal. It starts up at the top with Matt Ryan. Lucas, you knew it was Tua time. You say it every week. Tua being on the bench, of course, scoring almost as many points as your entire roster that was active. Matt Ryan getting 7.26 points, only 1 touchdown pass there with 3 interceptions. 3 interceptions? Yeah. Holy wow. That's a lot of interceptions against the Chargers there. Giovanni Bernard, he only had 3 carries. He had 3 receptions too, but he did have a fumble, bringing that all the way back down to 1.8 points. Darrell Henderson only had 2 carries, as it was the Cam Akers show in Los Angeles there. Adam Thielen, again, sort of like Justin Jefferson, held in check by a Tampa Bay defense that was ready for them. Devontae Parker leaving early with an injury in week 14 here after failing to haul in either of his 2 receptions. Ty Johnson, a running back from the New York Jets, he got 8 carries, which he got 16 yards on, which is quite frankly abysmal, especially against the Seattle defense. That's tough to see. And then, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, Younghoe Koo getting 6 points on uncharacteristically low score from him. The only player to get double digits for this squad in the active lineup was Robert Tonyan. He caught all 5 of his receptions and for 36 yards and a touchdown, 12 points. That's a good tight end score. But that's also just under a third of the total points for this squad. Truly an abysmal performance for Lucas and his team, moving into that punishment round as he gets flushed into the next round of playoffs here. Let's move on to the other matchup between our punishment round 1 between Randy's Donuts and the Dog Sniffers. Randy's Donuts having a lower seed. Randy's Donuts having a lower seed, of course, than the Dog Sniffers, but able to get the upset victory anyways. Tom Brady being the lead quarterback here, getting 15.64 points. Alvin Kamara getting his highest score since since Drew Brees had his injury, since what's his face, Taysom Hill, Jesus. Since Taysom Hill has been starting, got his highest point total since then at 18.9 points. Calvin Ridley had himself a game while Julio Jones was on the bench out with his hamstring injury. It's possible that Julio will not be back again for week 15, which should help Randy's Donuts number one receiver. Oh my God, guys. I'm tired, boys. Tired of yawning. Mike Thomas, he has not been spectacular since he got back. His high score in the year so far being 15 points, and he got 12.4 this week. So Michael Thomas has not been an amazing receiver this year, and I blame Taysom Hill for that. I remembered his name that time. Good job, Zach. You are crushing it today. Noah Fant keeps getting played for some reason. He's this is his second zeros. He only played 8% of snaps and left with an injury early in that game against Carolina. But Curtis Samuel, wide receiver out of Carolina, picked up the slack for Noah Fant there, getting 12.5 points. He's sort of a combo wide receiver running back for Carolina there, so pretty good play. And then, of course, Hot Rod Rodrigo Blankenship getting 14 points. It's fantastic work. And plus the Rams defense getting 21, that never hurts. Randy's Donuts wins 125.74 to 99.16. So let's talk about the dog sniffers, where Deshaun Watson was unable to lead his team to victory after only getting 16.56 points against Chicago in their loss, their 36-7 loss against Chicago. Yikes, that's pretty rough. But Ronald Jones almost 15 points, pretty good. Keenan Allen just over 15 points, pretty good. Travis Kelce, of course, 23.6 points. I think he's like the third, the third highest scorer of receivers this year. I think I saw that somewhere. I'm not going to verify that. You guys can look it up yourself if you care. But then Wayne Gallman kind of disappointed this week. James Conner definitely disappointed. He only had 10 carries for 18 yards in their loss to Buffalo. They were down for most of that game. So, of course, they were going to be more relying on the passing game. And James Conner definitely was hurt by that. And then just the rest of the team not really performing well. Okay, man. Tough to see. One piece of bad luck here is Ronald Jones is being put on the COVID reserve list for Week 15, meaning that the top running back for the Dog Sniffers is not going to be available come next week in the punishment match. So let's talk about game number 3 here, where we had our first matchup between our winning bracket players, where we had the number 5 seed Gluten Freaks up against number 4 Not Trading Lamar, where the Freaks were able to pull off the upset win, 128.12 to 101.92. Let's talk about it. Josh Allen, 2 touchdowns, great job, crushing it. Win over Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh's second loss of the year. Duke Johnson got 6.9 points. Nice. Which actually tied Ezekiel Elliott for 6.9 points. Also nice. Austin Eckler has been fantastic since his return, getting 19 points in his third match since his return. He's averaging over 10 points, close to 15 points per match so far. He's been a great addition to the team. JD McKissick filling in wide receiver due to the fact that Cooper Kupp had played by the time Julio Jones was ruled out. The backup receiver was JD McKissick. And then DeAndre Hopkins actually had a pretty good score, thank God. 18 points. Mike Jasicki being fantastic pickup for this squad, scoring 21 points this week. That was after his 19-point performance of the week before. Hopefully his shoulder is able to heal up in time for week 15. But then here is the so frustrated at these players sometimes. Josh Jacobs and his shenanigans. Posting on Instagram. I was not home. I was out in a hunting field when I got notified of the Josh Jacobs isn't playing. He posted on his Instagram. Oh no, everybody panic. Quickly put in T.Y. Hilton, who I just picked up on a whim. And that is how T.Y. Hilton got in the starting lineup. Now, T.Y. Hilton did score 23.1 points, but Josh Jacobs here scored 8.9 points on the bench after his absolute tomfoolery put him there. And I did not catch that he he was actually going to be playing. And thank goodness, because, that would have been an even closer matchup. I would have been actually kind of scared about losing. Dolphins are great again, as always. Two key players were on the COVID reserve list for this squad, David Johnson and Kilometers Gaskin. Hopefully both those will have the option of returning in week number 15. So let's talk about not trading Lamar. Lamar Jackson looked true to form, the keeper that we all expect. Some might say a second-round draft pick in other leagues in a close match where you needed him to win. Lamar Jackson, 34.92 points, coming out after his cramping and just absolutely slinging. You love to see that, especially after his 2 touchdown carries. We talked about Zeke, 6.9 points. Nice. James Robinson, kind of a down week, only 10.3 points, but he's still been a fantastic stud. And then did you all see that A.J. Brown catch? Man, that was crazy. One pretty disappointing player on this team the last couple weeks, actually, both weeks that I played Josh in the past 2 weeks. Terry McLaurin getting 2.4 and 3.4 points over the last 2 weeks in a surprisingly quiet matchup the last couple of games. Hopefully, well, just for context though, the first game was against Pittsburgh, and the second game was against San Francisco. Both have pretty tough pass defenses. The upcoming game will be against the Seattle Seahawks, who are allowing much more points per game to opposing wide receivers. But Chris Godwin was held in check by the Minnesota defense, and the Seahawks defense. They did fine, but nowhere near enough to being able to do anything. But nowhere near being able to do enough to make up the difference here of the overwhelming gluten freaks win here. Let's talk about the last matchup of week number 4, where we have the Spring Chickens versus the Gruesome Grinders, our second back-to-back game between these between teams here. First one being, of course, between Josh and Zach. This is our second back-to-back game. Spring Chickens versus Gruesome Grinders. The Grinders run away with it for the second week in a row and by a much larger margin this week. So let's talk about how we got here. Spring Chickens, 95.4 points, led by Aaron Rodgers, who had just under a third of the points for this team, 30.9 points. Dalvin Cook, he had that 47-point game, 47.6-point game earlier. And then the last 4 weeks, he hasn't been that 47-point player. He's getting a lot of points, but nowhere near that massive margin. But 18 is still good. Chris Carson, 17.3, also very good. The disappointing piece that came from this squad was, of course, the wide receivers. Corey Davis getting 2.9 points, and Robert Woods getting 5.6. Rob Gronkowski getting 6.7, and Chase Claypool getting 3. Those 4 combining for that pretty low number of points is really what did this team in, especially when you look over at the Gruesome Grinders at where they really racked up points. First things first, Pat Mahomes, 18.62, not great. Let's move past him. He'll be fine. Derrick Henry. 215 yards and 2 touchdowns. The man is a monster. I don't know how you expect that, especially against the Jacksonville defense. Of course, he's going to run them over 35.2 points. David Montgomery, a surprising, just he's been pretty hot the last couple weeks. He's been over 20 ever since their bye week, every single week that he's played. This week getting 23 points. Tyreek Hill continues to be an absolute fantasy stud. Who would ever think about trading Tyreek Hill and Derrick Henry? Couldn't be me. But Drew was able to keep them. Tyler Lockett has been kind of a bust, more on the bust side since he got traded over to the Gruesome Grinders. We'll see if he makes it into the lineup in Week 15 after scoring only 7.7 points this week and 9.3 and 3.8 in the 2 previous weeks as well. Dallas Goedert, he's tight end. He did fine, 6.3 points. But the fun part of this story, of course, is the Washington football team scoring 25 points. They had 2 defensive touchdowns, 4 sacks against San Francisco. Absolutely dominated that game defensively, 25 points. But let's just take a look at the bench for the Gruesome Grinders. We got Mike Davis, who's going to be starting again in Week 15. We got Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds tag teaming in Arizona. Cam Akers, who is now apparently the undisputed number 1 back in Los Angeles. It really just an absolute list of studs in the bench there. It's going to be a tough with that amount of depth for any team to really take them down. So that is our 4 matchup recaps. Let's just keep rolling here. Last week we did the award ceremony. God, I'm losing it, boys. We did the award ceremony. That's all good fun. I did not get around to giving out money for that because, quite frankly, I forgot until just now that I didn't do that. So that'll come eventually. Don't worry, boys. I will give you your money. So let's move on over into Week 15 then, and we're gonna go ahead and start right away with the 2 matchups that of our 4 teams that will have a Week 16 matchup. And we'll start with the Gluten Freaks over the Rock Plopstas. Of course, we have John coming off his bye week. John scoring 154 points on his bye week. Definitely a pretty high number. Good for him to be able to do that. Didn't really matter for anything, but it's a point of pride that he would have gotten second out of any of the weeks. 154.3 points there. The edge is definitely going to go towards the Rock Plopstas on this one. And we'll start by looking at who's playing at quarterback. Josh Allen versus Russell Wilson. Josh Allen is the number 5 overall player, number 5 quarterback on the season. And Russell Wilson is the number 3 overall quarterback and number 3 overall player on the season so far. Since John has had Russell Wilson, however, Russ has definitely been a bit lower performing. Since his early season hot start. People were talking about him being the MVP potentially this season. That talk is all but evaporated. Josh Allen had that same conversation evaporate much earlier for him, but he has bounced back and now is actually scoring a decent number of points again. Going on to the running back comparisons here, we have Josh Jacobs and Austin Eckler up against Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, and Miles Sanders. No word yet on if David Johnson or Columbus Gaskin will make it back into the lineup off the COVID list in Week 15. But just looking at who's in the running back position, edge is definitely towards Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, and Miles Sanders, especially given their relatively easy matchups against Carolina, the New York Giants, and Arizona. Compared to Josh Jacobs and Austin Eckler, both being questionable this week, as well as being up against the Chargers in Las Vegas, edge to the Rock Plopstas. In the category of wide receivers, we have, I think, the two teams with the best comboed wide receivers. I think the best wide receiver for fantasy this year has been Tyreek Hill. But if we're looking at combos, Julio Jones and DeAndre Hopkins versus Devontae Adams and Allen Robinson, I think that of those two, these of all the teams, these are my two favorite pairs of receivers. All of them have the potential to go off for pretty big numbers, and all of them have really good matchups this week. Julio Jones against Tampa Bay, DeAndre Hopkins against Philadelphia, Devontae Adams against Carolina, and Allen Robinson against Minnesota. All of them have fantastic opportunities to go off. Right now, Cooper Kupp is in the flex spot, adding on to the gluten-free side of things against the Jets, which is also a fantastic matchup. Right now, I would give the edge just a bit to the gluten freaks based off that Cooper Kupp matchup, but it's definitely not close. Let's moving on down to the tight end comparison here. Darren Waller versus Mike Gesicki. Gesicki, of course, being still questionable with a shoulder injury and a tough matchup against New England versus Darren Waller having a pretty good matchup against the Chargers. Darren Waller is the number 2 tight end on the year now compared to Gesicki's number 5 tight end. Definitely an edge to the Rock Plopses on that one. Kickers I don't care about. Well, I do, but not examining them. Let's talk about the defenses, though. The defenses, we have the number 2 defense in the Miami Dolphins against the number 1 defense in the Pittsburgh Steelers for fantasy points this year. I'm pumped, but unfortunately, I'm definitely giving the edge to the Steelers on this one. They're up against Cincinnati on Monday Night Football. They'll be playing to right themselves after 2 pretty tough losses the last 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the Dolphins against New England isn't a terrible matchup, but it's definitely not as easy as Cincinnati matchup. So edge to the Steelers, but the Dolphins are just right there. The couple questions, of course, on the bench for both these teams. Number 1, for John and his squad, will Antonio Gibson be able to play against the Seahawks? If he does, will he make the start over Miles Sanders? It's tough to say right now. For the gluten freaks, a couple questions regarding COVID reserve list for Miles Gaskin and David Johnson. Will T.Y. Hilton make the start against Houston? And will Kareem Hunt make the start against the Giants? Kareem Hunt, of course, scoring 26 points in the last game, getting into the end zone twice. He's actually the number 6 PPR running back on the year so far. But, of course, with Nick Chubb being back, his value has drastically decreased since the earlier part of the season. Definitely going to be a close one, John. Giving the edge to you, though, in good game, John. Moving on to game number 2 here, where we have the Google team names versus the Gruesome Grinders. I'm giving the edge to the GGs on this one. Everyone knows I'm a big names fan, but let's just take a look at what happened in Week 14 for frame of reference. The GGs getting 158 points, the number 1 score on the week. And the Google team names rather getting 99.0 or 97.08 points in their bye week. So pretty much almost would have lost to anybody if the Google team names had been had been in the not the bye week. So Sam got lucky there. Let's talk about the matchups here. Kyler Murray and Pat Mahomes are the number 1 and 2 quarterbacks on the year so far, and both have been playing fantastic. Pat Mahomes has a tougher matchup against New Orleans, but Kyler Murray has been known to bust a few more times than Pat Mahomes has. Jonathan Taylor is coming off of his best career game. He scored 29.5 points last week, but Derrick Henry is opposite him, and he absolute went just bonkers in a 37 points game in week 14, which was his third highest score on the year. Outrageous. Melvin Gordon, tough matchup against Buffalo, but David Montgomery has an okay matchup against Minnesota. As mentioned earlier, Montgomery being over 20 points the last 3 weeks. He's definitely the hot hand compared to Melvin Gordon. Now let's get into the talk of course, our wide receiver points here. Tyreek Hill has been the single highest point getter for all of the wide receivers so far this year, but Sam has had the highest number of wide receiver points on the year so far, at 615 points combined on the year so far. That does include last week. So if we were to just look at regular season, Sam still has the highest number of wide receiver points by 50 over the next highest player. So Sam's wide receiver core has been one of the best in the league, compared to one really good wide receiver in Tyreek Hill. And those, of course, are DK Metcalf, Amari Cooper, and Juju Smith-Schuster. With T. Higgins on the bench, it's possible that he gets back in, but unlikely. And then Will Fuller, of course, being suspended as well. Edge to I'm still going to give the edge to the gruesome grinders just because of Tyreek Hill. DK Metcalf and Amari Cooper have some pretty tough matchups in Washington and San Francisco, but Mike Evans has a pretty good matchup against Atlanta. It's tough to see which one will perform better. And then Mike Davis is just sitting there in that flex spot against a pretty weak Green Bay run defense. That's giving the gruesome grinders the edge in this week's matchup. All right, we got 3 matchups left. Let's talk about our 5th place game between the Spring Chickens and not trading Lamar. It is Aaron Rodgers versus Lamar Jackson. Both of them have really good matchups against Carolina and Jacksonville, respectively. So I'm really excited to see what happens in the running back game here. So Dalvin Cook and Chris Carson both have really tough matchups against Chicago and Washington. But Ezekiel Elliott, who has been honestly pretty disappointing on the year so far, he's only had in the last 3 weeks, he's had 1 game over 10 points, and that was at 11.5. He's trending downward, and he has a really tough matchup against San Francisco. But James Robinson has a really good matchup against Baltimore. It's going to just depend on if Dalvin Cook can have one of his monster games or not to break free here. Brennan's running back performance has been the best in the league so far this year, with Dalvin Cook leading the charge literally there. We'll have to see if that can continue. For wide receivers, both of these teams have absolutely struggled all year in picking which wide receiver to play in a given week. Both of them would have won games several times had they played the correct wide receiver. So let's talk about it. Jarvis Landry and Robert Woods and Corey Davis are in the lineup for Brennan versus A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, and Chris Godwin for Josh. Looking at matchups, it's looking like all of them have pretty good matchups. Landry against the Giants, Woods against the Jets, and Davis against Detroit. And then on Josh's side, we have A.J. Brown against Detroit, Terry McLaurin against Seattle, and Chris Godwin against Atlanta. Quite frankly, I don't really know which way this is going to go. Both of them have pretty good depth there, and we'll see what happens. Really, it's even if you look at the win percentage possibility here, this is our closest matchup on the week. And I would have to agree, in my expert opinion. Good luck for that 5th place championship, boys. You're going to need it. Let's talk about game number 4 then, where we have our 7th place game, our first game in the losers bracket, where we have Randy's Donuts versus Worse Than Trash. Of course, everybody knows that Tony has had some historical success against Noel. He's 3-0 against Noel all time. Somehow. So, of course, this is going to be a really interesting matchup between these two. So let's look at the quarterback comparison first and foremost. Tannehill versus Herbert. Both of them have great matchups. Tannehill against Detroit, Herbert against Vegas. Both of them have the potential to really go crazy here. Coming into this season, though, we knew that Noel's team, when healthy, had some of the best running backs in the game with Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey. Now, Henry's no longer on this team, and Christian McCaffrey is doubtful to play in week number 15 here. So Jeff Wilson will be making the start at running back against the Dallas defense, combining with Alvin Kamara against Kansas City. For Tony, J.K. Dobbins against Jacksonville and Clyde Edwards-Helaire against New Orleans. I think overall, Dobbins and Helaire are sort of at 2 and 3. Kamara and Wilson are at 1 and 4 in this comparison. It's going to be tough to make the distinction here, but just Kamara needing to have a big win over Kansas City, I'm giving the edge to Noel in the running back category. Looking at receivers, we have Justin Jefferson and Stephon Diggs up against Calvin Ridley and Michael Thomas. I'm giving the edge to Diggs and Jefferson of Worse Than Trash. Even with Calvin Ridley playing against Tampa Bay, he's questionable, and it's possible that Julio Jones will be back. Ridley still being hampered by that foot injury that he received some weeks ago. And Michael Thomas has a tougher matchup against Kansas City with Taysom Hill still in at quarterback. Justin Jefferson, though, and Stephon Diggs are having some fantastic seasons, and they definitely have the chops to pull this off. And then just looking at where are some difference makers? Is it going to be Pittman? Is it going to be Swift? I don't think so. Hot Rod, Rodrigo Blankenship, or Joey Sly. I don't think that's where the difference is going to get made up. I'm looking at, of course, the defense, and it is the Rams defense versus the Jets. Or the Titans defense versus Detroit. Definitely advantage Rams. I'm going to give Randy's Donuts the edge here, but I do think that the historical context, even with all the talent that Randy's Donuts has, I am personally going to have to say that Tony's got a real good chance at maintaining his undefeated streak against Randy's Donuts. Finally, let's get into our punishment round. Punishment matchup with the Dog Sniffers and Pelicans on a bench. Again, that is Pelicans on a bench.
Well, it's Monday night, a new week has begun. I turn on my TV for some pigskin fun. I see a Super Bowl season here on ABC. The biggest game each week is their specialty. I gotta get ready, make everything right, 'cause Monday Night Football's coming on tonight. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready for some football?
We have Matt Ryan versus Deshaun Watson. Both of them have absolutely terrible matchups this week. Tampa Bay for Matt Ryan, who against the Tampa Bay defense, who have played very well, and then Deshaun Watson against Indianapolis, who've been playing well against opposing quarterbacks. Not what you want to see. So let's get into the running backs then. both these teams' running back core has just been decimated with Devin Singletary and Giovanni Bernard having to be in the starting lineup. Bernard against Pittsburgh defense. But then over on the other side, Ronald Jones is heading to the COVID list, which means Wayne Gallman and James Conner are going to have to make the start. Still giving the edge to the dog sniffers, but it's going to be a lot closer than I think he wants them to be. Looking at the wide receiver category here, Adam Thielen is the number 11 PPR format wide receiver. He's been really good against, he's been very good this year. He is leading the league or close to leading the league in number of touchdowns for a wide receiver. But he's up against a really tough Chicago defense. And then Brandon Ayuk, who's to know? How can you trust anybody in the San Francisco offense at this point? Knowing Lucas, he'll probably get hurt like Deebo Samuel did, and have a goose egg or something ridiculous. Meanwhile, Keenan Allen and Nelson Aguilar have better matchups against Las Vegas and the Chargers. I'm giving the edge to the dog sniffers on that as well. It is possible. Now let's look at tight ends. Both of these two currently have two tight ends in the mix. Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews for the dog sniffers. And then Robert Tonyan and George Kittle, who might be back from IR in that flex spot. It would be very fun to see four tight ends going in this match. I think that still have to give the edge to Kelce and Andrews, but if George Kittle's back against Dallas, you can expect that George Kittle is going to come out with a lot of fire underneath him to keep his team alive in the playoff hopes. The Ravens defense has fallen a little bit. They used to be the number 1 defense. Now they're the number 5 defense. And then the Browns defense is in for the team ran by Lucas. I'm definitely giving the edge to the dog sniffers. But we all know that sometimes Lucas can just, rip off a really good score, and that we know that Thomas is a bunch of frauds. So there's no real way of knowing who's going to have to do that punishment. I'm excited to see which one of them has to do it, and I'm excited to see which one of them, just has a good enough week to make it there. That's all we have for our matchup previews for this week. Let's head on over to the Pong Stars Pick'em. Welcome, folks, to the Pong Stars Pick'em Week 15 segment, our spooktacular segment of the Pong Stars Pick'em. Everybody knows it's the Halloween season.
John, reminded me of Thor in Endgame when he's telling about the dark elves.
All right. No, let's get to it. We got 5 games. That's our last 5 games. Last 5 game week of the
Where'd Sam go? Oh, there he is.
Sam get closer. Last 5 game week of the season, where we have our 2 semifinal rounds in the winners bracket. We have a fifth place game, a 7th place game, and of course our punishment round. So let's get right on into it. We're going to start with game number 1 here, and that is the Rock Plopstas versus the Gluten Freaks. And we're going to start with Drew.
Sam, your skin looks so soft from this angle.
I got the Rock Plopstas advancing to the championship. John's team is a powerhouse, and he'll be advancing easily.
Easily bold.
Wow. All right, John.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Rock Plopstas are going to take home the dub this week, but I am definitely not discounting my opponent. I really wish I was playing Sam this week. Zach's team is trending upwards, and I think it's going to be a battle. But I was very pleased to see my team performed very well this week, even though I didn't have a matchup. So confident I'll still get the dub, but definitely going to be a close one.
Yeah, John's team did have the second highest points in week 14. 4 points behind Drew Mahol. Noel, what you got?
Drew
I'm
also
picking
got
an
like
upset this week. I'm picking Zach over the Rock Plopsters. As Drew said, or maybe John said, that his team is trending up. And I think in a sneaky upset, John wasted a lot of points this past week on his bye. So I know you gotta save that. So yeah, I got Zach this week.
Should take him out of your lineup.
Players.
Yeah, if you take money lineup, they can't score.
Thomas, who you got?
I got the Rock Plopsters, and they're going to be my lock this week. I think Nick has been chubbing, and he's going to continue to chub.
Let Nick chub.
And they have definitely been letting Nick chub. So
They gotta stop. They gotta stop letting Kareem hunt though, because that's just enough.
yeah, that's just stupid.
No, they're letting Kareem Hunt next week against you.
Nah, he doesn't have a permit. Took it away.
All right, Sam.
I have got the Rock Plopsters narrowly over the Gluten Freaks.
Narrowly.
All right, just to give the lay of the land here, there's two things I'm taking into consideration when I'm making my pick. Number one, the armchair experts segment, where I did claim that I would go all the way to the championship and win that, as well as the fact that I'm 1 point behind the two leaders in this pick'em segment. So I'm going with the upset that I can count on myself. Zach over John, the Gluten Freaks over the Rock Plopsters, hoping to catch up in both. So let's move on to game number 2, which is, of course...
You're going to catch me if we're picking the same person.
Yeah, but you're picking somewhere else differently.
Oh, okay.
I think.
My mistake.
Yeah, bozo.
How do you know his picks already?
Yeah, you're bozo.
Ram.
All right. Drew, it is up to you in the Google team names versus the Gruesome Grinders.
Yeah, I've got the Gruesome Grinders. They're on a roll, playing well, put up the highest point total last week. Going to keep it rolling this week over the Google team names. Get the big dub, move on to the championship.
All right, John, who you got?
Yeah, I agree. I'm terrified of Drew's team. I was really hoping he would lose to Brennan last week and get knocked out of the playoffs. I'm really going to be hoping he gets knocked out this week, but I think he's going to get it done. I don't see any reason that he's going to slow down. Derrick Henry, obviously, is just getting stronger and stronger as the season goes, like he always does. So I think it's going to be the Gruesome Grinders.
Noel.
Yeah, I've been discounting Sam's team all year, but I mean, obviously he's done well if he had a bye last week. But unfortunately, Drew's team, as John and him both mentioned, is picking up steam, and they're going to roll over the Google team names.
Tomas.
I definitely have the GGs here, and I think it's going to be a large victory. At least a 60-plus point margin. Gruesome Grinders.
Bulletin board material for Sam.
I don't like that, Thomas. You don't need to give him any of that.
Sam, who you got?
I'm going to do the Lee Corso again. Not so fast, my friends. Going back to my O'Gorman roots. 1 Samuel 17 verse 50. David does defeat Goliath. I've got the Google team names over the Gruesome Grinders this week. Let's roll.
Had a slip of the tongue there. He is
That's a great presentation.
battling his logic.
Sam, take out your lipstick and make a better choice.
We'll fold some
Everybody
socks.
here knows.
Go to get your
I'm
laundry.
a huge names guy. But I'm picking the Gruesome Grinders this week. Can't go with Sam. I feel like there's an obvious trend in Drew's performance, and it is definitely overtaken what the names can put up on their best days, I think. And so let's move on to all 4 of those teams will have another matchup next week to determine championship and third place. Both are worth money, and second place is also worth money. So big week next week for those 4 teams as well. But let's move on to the 3 games where it is the last week for those participants, our 6 remaining teams. And in game number 1 for 5th place, we have Brennan and the Spring Chickens versus Josh and Not Trading Lamar. And we'll start with Drew.
I'm going to go with Not Trading Lamar. I think, Lamar has gained a little bit of momentum the last couple of weeks. kind of back to maybe 2019 form. I think carries that in and helps Josh get the win this week.
All right, John.
I'm going to go with the Spring Chickens. I think, although not trading Lamar had the better record over the course of the season, I think the Spring Chickens have been the better team, scoring more points throughout the season. So I'm going to roll with Brennan. That's also what I predicted in the Armchair Experts. So I'm going to stick with that.
Noel, who you got?
I don't remember what I picked in the brackets. I don't like that John brought that up because now it makes me worried that but I'm gonna pick Brennan.
Thomas. Thomas,
I'm mute.
Hello?
There it is.
I got Brennan's team.
Perfect. Spring Chickens for Thomas. All right, Sam.
I am going to lock the Spring Chickens in this game. I think Brennan's got his team ready to roll late in the season here.
Sam is locking Brennan.
What?
I'm going to lock Brennan.
All
Lock
right.
Brennan and Spring Chickens.
He's locking Brennan. I am going to take Josh and not trading Lamar, though. You know, I'm giving it to the edge to the guy who watches this show. So that's where we're going with picks there. Next up, we have our 7th place game. Just, for final standings and for the history books here, in the safe part of the losers bracket, where we have Tony and Worse Than Trash versus Noel and Randy's Donuts battling it out for 7th place. And we'll start with Drew. Who you got?
I am going to take Randy's Donuts to claim the highly coveted 7th place spot in the final standings. Give me Randy's Donuts in this one.
John, who you got?
Yeah, I'm also taking Randy's Donuts. Obviously, I've been a clear hater of Worse Than Trash the whole season, and I don't plan on stopping now. So give me Randy's Donuts.
Noel, who you got?
Yeah, I need to put a stop to this losing streak against Worse Than Trash. And I really wish McCaffrey was playing this weekend. Makes me worried if I don't have. Please stop talking while I'm talking. But
okay, no.
Okay, all right, calm down.
I know. I thought it'd be funny. But yeah, I got to go with myself. I got to put a stop to this losing streak.
Where'd Sam go?
He took it.
Take it off his lipstick.
There he is.
He emerges from the darkness. Thomas, who you got?
I think Noel's going to win, but I do have to caveat that with Tony's team and Josh's team have been 2 of the luckiest teams this season. So I would not put it past them to win.
Accurate. All right, Sam.
I've got the Randy's Donuts finally getting past.
It's Randy's Donuts. For fuck's
The
sake.
Randy's Donuts they're gonna put to bed this whole somehow not beating Worse Than Trash all year. I think they're gonna do it.
I am changing on the fly. I'm going against the grain. Take Worse Than Trash. He's going to keep his streak of always beating Noel alive. Taking Tony. And I just changed it in my spreadsheet too. So it's official.
Wait, change it for me too. I changed my mind. I agree with you. I think he's going to get lucky. I changed it to Tony.
Anybody else want to take the clear, obvious choice here of the guy who always wins over Noel?
I'm just glad it's not a sweep anymore. It makes me feel more comfortable.
All right. Let's move on to the most important game this week.
That was it.
What? Not really.
There's somebody who has to join me in the punishment for next year.
So let's get to that punishment. We are playing for, obviously, we have Lucas and Pelicans on a bench. Again, that is
John
on a bench versus Thomas and the Dog Sniffers. Dog Sniffers lost a lot of games this year by less than 2.5 points. and now find themselves all the way down in the punishment game, potentially winning, of course, our trophy that's named in Sleeper, the Plop. Definitely not something you want in your trophy case, and don't want to be doing the punishment. Noel's getting some great ad for Yeti there.
No free ads, Noel. Come on.
Content.
I got us sponsored this week.
Yeah, Noel's sponsored this week. So big match and playoff implications.
Yeah, that's on the bottom.
Is once again left to the darkness. Jeez, this all right. It's upside down. It's upside down, Noel. All right, there you go. Awesome. This is a great part of the program, boys. I just
Yeah.
we're really on track tonight. All right. Drew, in the punishment game, the punishment for the plop, do you have Thomas or Lucas winning?
I am going to kind of change things up from my initial thought going in. I'm going to lock Pelicans on a bench. That is Pelicans on a bench. My lock this week, I'm going for that top spot in the pick'em.
Damn.
There you go.
We'll see it,
John.
I'm out of contention, I'm pretty sure. So I'm just gonna pick the team that's actually gonna win, the Dog Sniffers, and that is my lock.
All right, Noel.
Yeah, it makes me very happy that Drew picked Pelicans on a bench. That is Pelicans on a bench. Because that makes it a lot more comfortable than having a sweep for the Dog Sniffers, because they are my lock this week over Pelicans on a bench.
All right.
That is Pelicans on a bench.
All right, thank you. All right, Tomas, who you got in your own punishment match?
Let me first say that I have very low confidence in my team. That being said, I have even lower confidence in the Pelicans on a bench. That is Pelicans on a bench. So I got to go with the Dog Sniffers.
That needs to stop.
I love that.
That is so gross.
Never change.
Sammer, who you got?
I think Pelicans on a bench. That is Pelicans on a bench is going to have a better week than they did last week, because I don't think you can get much worse. But that being said, I think Thomas easily rolls to a victory here in the Dog Sniffers. I think they get one done here. They avoid the punishment, and Lucas will join me in the punishments before next season.
All right, I am taking the Dog Sniffers over Pelicans on a bench.
Let's go Pelicans.
Again, as Pelicans on a bench. Lots of points at stake. So let's get to one last bonus that we have for this week. And this is going to be a fun one. Will Lucas and Pelicans on a bench, again, that's Pelicans on a bench, double his week 14 score? His week 14 score, of course, being 38.66. And to double that would be 77.32 points. Will he at least get over 77.32 points? Drew, we'll start with you.
Given that the Pelicans on a bench, that is Pelicans on a bench are my lock this week. I'm going to take the over.
Oh, I thought you were going to say no, because Thomas wasn't going to score.
And, well, that would have been a decent bet,
Also
too.
possible.
I'm going to take the over.
Okay, taking the over. John.
No.
No, he says no. No.
I'm stuck on this one, too, for Pelicans on a bench. That's Pelicans on a bench. But I'm, God.
I'm so excited for this stupid bit to be over. God.
We're gonna end.
It is. This is the last week they play.
Well,
Thank
that's
God.
the next season.
They're going to have a new name by then, hopefully.
I gotta go back
Please.
to the Diamond Hose, man.
Make a call, Noel.
Oh my
two,
God!
one.
I'm gonna say
Nothing.
I'm gonna say he plays 2 this week, and he's.
Yes. You said yes. All right,
Yes.
cool. Tomas.
I believe Pelicans on a bench.
That is Pelicans on a bench.
Is gonna double their score.
Oh man.
Sam.
I was not expecting that. That was good.
Got it, buddy.
That was
I'm
funny.
currently crying.
Sam, yes or no?
Oh shit.
That's not an answer.
Watch your
I think-
profanity.
I think Pelicans on a bench. That is Pelicans on a bench. Will go over the 77 point whatever mark.
And I agree. I'm saying the over. He's going to make it. He's going to get 80.28 points. To Thomas's
That's one extra point. Calling is total.
83.6 for Thomas.
69.69.
Nice.
A physically impossible score to get.
John, I'll give you $1,000 if that happens.
What?
You can't get okay. I'll explain the rules later, but you cannot get
69.420.
the 10th spot or the 100th spot, whatever it is.
Stat corrections. Come on. Have you ever heard of 9/10 of a yard?
Duh, should have known that, idiot. Bozo.
69.42.
0.
Nope, just 0.42.
Love that. All right. That is all we have for this week.
I vote that Zach has moved away from commissioner because he's being mean.
You should vote to impeach me for abusing my power. I agree. We have 2 teams at 54 points right now with Nolan and Sam. We have 2 teams at 53 with Drew and Zach. And then the other 2 are pretty far back, but we'll say them anyways. John at 46 and Thomas at 43.
Stop at 40.
Big difference there.
We're
But
coming back, Thomas.
you guys,
Yes, we are. That 100-point question.
Google. Turn on the lights.
okay. All right, we're done. We're done here. Cut it. Cut the bit. We'll see you next week. All right, thanks, Pick'em players. We only have 1 week left after this. So, you know, it's a real tight race still, 54, 54, 53, 53. And I think there's like a couple 40s. I don't know. You guys just saw the scoreboard. So let's wrap this up. That's all we have for this week on the Rat Hole. I've been your host, Commissioner Zach Eichten. Thanks for voting. Let's get started here, folks. Welcome to the Pong Stars Pick'em Week 15. We got 2 weeks left of Pick'em, and my computer's dying. So be right back.